All right. What is up, everybody? Oh, why am I on twitch.tv/mad exposure? I don't want that. I mean, nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, I need my chat up. You know what I'm saying? Why can't I bring my chat up? I want to. I want to. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Reopen closed tab. Is there such a thing? View. History. Oh, that's Chrome. I want this. Scene collection. Chat. That's what I'm talking about. There we go. What's up, the singer bro? Happy Friday. End of a long week. Refresh that feed if you didn't. Just trying to do it right. You know what I mean? How we doing, everybody? Happy Friday. My name is Luke Shot First, aka Gage Sieber. I'm here tonight. I've had a couple of ciders, feeling pretty good about it. I had a long week of work. That sucked. I got to work a little this weekend. We're not going to worry about that. But overall, I'm here. I reached the end of the week, and I figured I'd jump on here and just do a little bit of what I miss out on doing sometimes. I get to stream to you guys, I get to say hi, and I get to talk about the bullshit and the music that I love to talk about. So if you're here, it's because you like Neon Pocket Dimension. Neon Pocket Dimension is a weekly podcast where we talk about all things nerdy. Everything nerdy exists in harmony. And me, along with the singer bro, aka Steven, OM Jesus, aka Jacob Jones, and Boxcar Miguel, aka Miguel, come together and we talk about everything that we love to nerd out about: video games, films, TV, anime, comic books, aliens, body composting. The list goes on. We got all sorts of good stuff to talk about. We pretty much can't shut up about anything. You give us a topic, we'll run with it. So Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we get together and have that podcast weekly, and it's a good time. So we'd love it if you came and hung out on twitch.tv/Neon Pocket Dimension to check that out, or checked out all of our stuff. We have VODs later on YouTube at youtube.com/@Odd Valley Studios, or on podcast services around the globe. Just go ahead and look up Neon Pocket Dimension. It'll show up there for you, I'm sure. I'm gonna get some water because I'm gonna be talking a lot because I'm by myself. So 2 seconds, I'll be here, and then we're gonna get into this tier list. It's gonna be a good time. All right, this is your reminder. Don't forget to hydrate. Keep a water bottle next to you at all times. That's the way to be. And I hope you're having a good time this week. I hope the week wasn't too rough. I'm happy to have you here on Friday night. It's 8 o'clock Pacific time, at least. I'm gonna do a little bit of editing. You know what I'm saying? This is how we do. We edit on the fly. I'm not our producer. Jacob Jones is our producer, aka OM Jesus. Shout out to OM Jesus being in the Kind of Funny chat every day on Kind of Funny Games Daily. King of the chat, I call him. He's always out there asking good questions, provoking some conversations, maybe pushing your buttons a little bit. Always fun. And shout out to all the Kind of Funny best friends. I just want to give some love to that community that we are kind of a subsect of. I think it's just a cool thing that we all on the internet come together to be better. Talk about meaningful, constructive criticism about the games that we love. We talk about movies. We goof around. We understand that this is a weird and fun existence that we all inhabit. And when we get to be able to get together and talk about things that we love together, we feel a sense of camaraderie, and the internet becomes a beautiful and passionate place where communication is free and easy. And I've met so many good friends through this community. I've met so many good friends online, and all of a sudden my corner of the internet is actually a pretty beautiful place, considering there's so much muck and mire and garbage. So why am I here today? I'm here to talk about my favorite band of all time. Now, there are days in which you ask me, and I'm going to say Gorillaz is my favorite band of all time. That's not untrue. I'm not lying about that. Some days I like Gorillaz. Some days I like Radiohead. Either way, I think they're both unique and creative projects that have pushed the medium of music forward. What's up, OM Jesus? I was just singing your praises for all of your production work and how much good you spread in the Kind of Funny community chat. And I was just praising the Kind of Funny community as well as our Neon Pocket Dimension subsect community, in which we are growing and being all sorts of good stuff. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Some days you ask me what my favorite band is, it's going to be Gorillaz. Maybe I'll do a tier list of them after this. Maybe not. Other days it's going to be Radiohead. Either way, I think both of those bands are pushing the medium of music forward. They've taken strides to go out of their way to make something that is wholly unique, not really pop based, although digestible. That's how that word works. And just utterly in pursuit of the creative, right? I don't think either of these bands are really hindering their creative flow for some sort of popularity contest or, trying to just sell records. I mean, I think they are trying to sell records. Like in the case of Radiohead, they have had experiments in which they try and kind of cut out the middleman, cut out the record industry, which I think ultimately a lot of like games industry could benefit from. There's all these different models of business, right? And ultimately you want to make money doing what you love. And I think both of those bands, both Gorillaz and Radiohead, have pushed the music industry forward that way and pioneered some of the things that we now consider to be kind of ubiquitous, streaming, direct downloads, digital only releases, that sort of thing. So tonight what I'm going to do to you is I'm going to go through just the core Radiohead albums, not the Thom Yorke solo stuff, not the Johnny Greenwood, Paul Thomas Anderson, soundtracks. I'm just going to go through the main core Radiohead albums. That's Pablo Honey, that's OK Computer, that's Kid A, that's Amnesiac, that's Hail to the Thief, In Rainbows, King of Limbs, and A Moon-Shaped Pool. Oh, and I forgot the Bends in there. Don't forget the Bends. So I'm going to go through these. Not everyone's a Radiohead fan. I totally get it. Anytime that like I say one of my favorite bands is Radiohead and people are like, okay, dude, whatever. I understand. Thom Yorke has a weird voice, but I think his voice is one of the most beautiful voices that a man, straight up just dude has ever had. Like, I think he hits notes. First of all, they're in my register, which is cool. When I sing, I can sing closer to like Thom Yorke than I can to like Nickelback or something, or Queen. Let's put it that way. I just think there's this beautiful combination of falsetto mixed with powerful vocals. There's some fucking rocking Thom Yorke vocals. And then Johnny Greenwood is one of the best guitarists of all time. He's a classically trained music student nerd who loves to like get into weird time signatures, alternate modes. He likes like Lothlorien mode. That's not even a real mode. Locrian is what I'm thinking of. Lothlorien is a town in Middle Earth. But he is incredibly, like, he knows all of the rules of music, but he breaks them in such a beautiful way. He's like fucking hardcore. He's got a great shredding sound. I mean, the first song that everyone fell in love with Radiohead was Creep, in which the whole reason that song works is because of Johnny Greenwood just goes and just does this big fucking distortion thing that everyone didn't understand at the time. And it was like a resurgence of like grunge and rock and roll. Good shit. So he's one of the best. Phil, the drummer, solid, like a jazz drummer and sometimes a rock drummer and other times. He just fits the mold. He's kind of like Ringo Starr, and where I wouldn't call him like, the best, flashiest drummer in the world, but he does the drums that fit the song, and he's here to work with the band. Beautiful stuff. Ed, the bass player, subtle, but like his bass playing is, again, a mix between rock and jazz bass, but he has some bass riffs that are just like the national anthem, like on Kid A, that just fucking shred, and he's totally shred worthy. He's a great bass player. Ed O'Brien, the cool one of the group. I think Thom Yorke and him kind of clash a little bit because Ed's like, I'm gonna be pretty and the girls all love me and my voice is really pretty also, but Ed's background vocals are essential to Radiohead's sound, and his guitar playing backs up Johnny in such a way. He's like such a good piece of that puzzle. And Johnny and Tom's dynamic is some of the best you're ever going to find in rock and roll. It's definitely Keith and Mick Jagger level. It's Lennon and McCartney level. Totally, 100%. It's worthy of a modern day masterclass, right? So, without further ado, let's rank the Radiohead albums. Now, here, I'm on this tiermaker.com, whatever fucking stuff. We're using what we got. I could probably do this in Photoshop myself, but just for the sake of ease of use, I'm doing that. There's this God tier thing. I think I'm going to ignore that. I'm just saying S tier is fucking S tier. Like, S tier is the same thing, right? So, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to ignore God tier. It's there. Ultimately, I might just put all the Radiohead albums in God tier. But I'm going to rank them kind of according to themselves. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be like, hey, I'm just going to be masturbatory and all these Radiohead albums are great. Yada, yada, yada. I'm going to go chronologically. So if you have anything to say about it, shout it out in the chat. And we'll talk it through. You feel me? Also, I'm by myself at home. There's a baby in my care. She is asleep. It's 8 o'clock at night. Hopefully she stays asleep. But if she wakes up and starts crying, I got to run over there and do this stuff. So I might stop the stream prematurely, or maybe I'll just leave it going and that'll be weird, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but knock on wood that she stays asleep. Let's start with the debut studio album from On a Friday. No, I'm just kidding. Do you know originally Radiohead was called On a Friday? And then there was some copyright issue. There was, I guess, another band called On a Friday, or maybe a song or something. And so they were about to go out they were about to get signed by, I think it was Columbia. I should look that up. They were about to get signed by a record label. And they were like, no, you can't be On a Friday. There's another band called that. And so literally, I think they had like moments to decide what their band was going to be called on this first record. Tom York, listening to his Discman or his iPod, I don't remember what. It was in the 90s, right? So it must have been tape player or something. But he was listening to the Talking Heads record that has the song Radiohead on it. So he was just like, hey, this is a great name, Radiohead. There's a song by the Talking Heads called Radiohead. Radiohead. It's a good song. Sound of a brand new world. It's a good song. You should check it out if you don't know it. There's other Talking Head songs besides This Must Be the Place or Once in a Lifetime. Go check them out. I would actually say Radiohead, Talking Heads have a lot of similar DNA, even though one of them is very British, one of them is very New York. We even know David Byrne's from Canada, but whatever, that's fine. So yeah, we're going to start off with Pablo Honey. Now, Pablo Honey is, here we go. We're talking about Pablo Honey right there. It is on the left there above my head. It is an awesome record, but I don't think it is a very good Radiohead record. Now we have songs like, you know what? Let me pull up the track list while I'm doing this so that I can kind of go through this. Bear with me for 1 second. Let's go to C discography and go all the way back to Pablo Honey. Now, again, this is the 90s, 1993. Holy shit, I thought it was later than that. So this is early. This is Blur. Never listened to the Radiohead album, just the singles. Huh, interesting, says Jesus. Look at my tier, and then maybe I'll give you a good starting point. It's odd. It's unabashedly weird, a little unnerving. A lot of it's off-putting, but some of it's fucking rock and roll, and it's definitely worth listening to. And again, I don't fault anyone. Anytime I say that my favorite band's Radiohead and people scoff at me, I totally understand. There's a pretense to Radiohead. A lot of times, Radiohead puts themselves as being better than other bands. While I sort of agree in a lot of ways, I also understand that it's like a little off-putting, and their attitude is a little bit like holier than thou, which I totally understand rubs people the wrong way. But they're fucking good, period. So here we go. Pablo Honey is a great record, not a great Radiohead record. Why do I say this? Pablo Honey is much more like a Blur or an Oasis album. It is very much a straightforward Britpop rock record. It was the sound of the time, obviously. There are some standouts on the record. We start off with You, which is a great song. You, Me, and Everything. Um, it kicks the record off with a serious bang, and then track number 2 is Creep. And Creep, again, a great song. I mean, we know it from the Social Network soundtrack. We know it from just that killer Johnny Greenwood guitar sound. And the lyrics are phenomenal. Your skin makes me cry. I wish I was special. You're so fucking special. Like, there's a lot of great things about that song. They got sick of it. We all got sick of it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it is a good and well written song. Then you got How to You is forgettable. Stop Whispering is another single off that album. I love it. Anyone Can Play Guitar, another one. Again, just really uncharacteristic of Radiohead. But again, these guys are like 17, 18 at this point. So like they're in music school, I think, at Leeds. I don't really remember, but they're in some British music school, art school or whatever. And there's some really interesting stuff at the end of the record. Lurgy and Blowout. Both of the songs feature Johnny Greenwood, the guitar player, in a way that you hear maybe some of his passions coming through. You hear like how one day he's going to evolve into one of the most revolutionary guitar players of all time. He's not there yet. They're young. They don't have the taste. You know what I mean? This is teenage angst album. This is girls still really matter to them at this point. You know what I mean? Being popular might matter to them at this point. But then what's going to happen is they're going to get popular and they're going to be like, oh, fuck this. Let's actually do what we love to do. Let's make music for the sake of making music as opposed to getting girls or whatever. So I think Pablo Honey is a worthy album. I will listen to it when I'm in a certain mood, but I don't listen to it when I'm in a Radiohead mood, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm going to... This is tough because I want to rate these records comparatively to each other, but if I'm talking about just a good album in general, like Pablo Honey is like a B tier record. Like I think it's probably as good as any of the Oasis records, probably better. It's better than all the Blur records. So like I would put Park Life by Blur as an A tier record. So does that make this an X tier record? Maybe. But is it an S tier Radiohead record? No, it's like a C tier Radiohead record. So what do? I don't know. I'm going to go with, it's really hard to do, but I'm going to put it at a C tier. It's a weird thing to do. Again, I think this is a tier album in general. Like I think from start to finish, you will listen to this album and be like, that's a good record. It's a good rock record. It's a good Britpop record. There's good lyrics. It's a little cheesy, but it's got teen angst. It's got grunge. It's got ripping guitar solos. I don't know. But as far as Radiohead's catalog, I think it's a C tier. So we move on to the next one. This is the Benz. See that crash test dummy over there? That's looking like, I don't know, whatever. It's a freaky album cover. It used to freak me out. My parents liked Radiohead. They got into them. We were in the Bay Area when Radiohead kind of first came out, when OK Computer hit really, but the Benz was there too. And they were all about it. I hated it. I was a little kid. I was like, what is this weird wailing shit? I can't even deal with it. So I hated Radiohead until I was older, and then someday it clicked for me. But the Benz is awesome. Let me pull up the track list. You start off with Planet Telex. Planet Telex to this day, Planet Telex is what I'm talking about, is one of my favorite songs of all time. I named my DJ persona after Planet Telex. It's named Kid Telex. I dreamt that this Telex is a hearing aid company. So I dreamt that I was from this planet in which the beings of this planet only communicate through music because they're not able to speak and not able to hear anything except for musical tones. Doesn't really make sense. But so my DJ name has been Kid Telex for a long time, and it just means a kid from Planet Telex. Love that song. It's a fantastic song. There's a great remix of it that makes it all dubby and reggae, which is cool. Then you have The Benz, the title track from the album. Great single. Not my favorite song on the record by any means, but good. High and Dry, another great single. Totally rivals the lyricism of Creep. And I think hit a pretty high record for Radiohead as far as their sales. Again, not my favorite song. Then you have Fake Plastic Trees. That's a ballad and a fucking love song to for the ages, man. That is a timeless and amazing song. Long, a little dramatic, a little a little melodramatic, I should say. You know, it's talking about things that are a little like, woe is me, my girl, you know, whatever. But ultimately, really well written song. One of my next favorite songs is Bones. It's all about, if you ever seen Tom York, half of his face was paralyzed for a good amount of his life. He didn't have full control of half of his face for a long time. I think it's probably one of the reasons he sings the way he does, and it's certainly the way he looks the way he does. If you see Tom York's face, it droops on one side. But he had this, I don't know exactly what the disease was, muscular dystrophy or MS maybe. But yeah, half of his face was paralyzed for a good part of his life. So Bones is all about him breaking out of that disease and really fucking rocking the song. Just killer. Just sounds like it's on OK Computer, which is really when Radiohead becomes Radiohead, right? But My Iron Lung, another great single. I play it all the time on guitar. It's got a great riff. Great tune. Black Star, good song. Sulk, underrated like song on the record. Sulk shreds. The Johnny Greenwood's droning. It's like, again, you're hearing Johnny coming into his own as a guitar player. And then it finishes with Street Spirit, Fade Out, which is this dark, moody. Street Spirit sounds like it should be on The King of Limbs, or In Rainbows, or Hail to the Thief. It sounds like a much more evolved Radiohead song. So The Bends, I think, is a perfect medium between Pablo Honey and later Radiohead stuff. Like, where Pablo Honey, pure Britpop, kids making rock and roll music. Later Radiohead, super experimental, weird, jazzy, emotional, melancholy, dark. The Bends is kind of like this perfect harmony that happens right in between. It's a rock and roll record through and through, but there's singer-songwriter elements, there's dark elements, there's moody elements, there's difficult subjects, and there's some protest tunes on there. There's some love songs. I think it's like very digestible. I think if you are a rock fan, maybe this is the place to start with Radiohead, like Jacob you were talking about. It's just a good record. It's a rockin' record. Tom York's vocals are still raw and young, and I think it's just very digestible. So, My Iron Lung, Bones, Sulk, The Bends, all very digestible tunes. If you want to get a little sad, Fake Plastic Trees. I can't really say anything wrong about this record, which again makes this difficult. Like, for all intents and purposes, as far as like albums throughout time, this is an A tier album. Straight up. I could listen to this any day and feel good about it. Put it on the car, rock out. If I'm sad, do that. But again, as far as Radiohead records go, is it A tier? Is it S tier? I don't know. Is it B tier? No, I like it better than a lot of Radiohead albums. Do I listen to it as much? Probably not. Because when I want Radiohead, I want a certain type of Radiohead. But there's still really amazing songs. I can't help but put it in the A tier. I got to do it. I don't know. So there it is. The Bends, A tier. Then we go to the Magna Cum Laude. What is it? Magnum Opus? What is it? Magna Carta? No, there's a lot of Magnas. I don't know, man. OK Computer. OK Computer is the fucking Big Bang, right? This is 2000, right? No, 1999? 2000. Let's look. 1997. Holy shit, this is ahead of a curve. This is like the millennium coming on hardcore. This is tech companies, not tech companies. This is .com companies. This is the paranoia of the 21st century and surveillance states. This is the idea of stress and working too hard and family versus work. This is the pressure to perform. This is like the prediction of the internet and the beginning of the information age. This album is prolific, and uh, it's utterly it's utterly predictive of the feeling that is about to come into the world. This is pre 9/11, but it knows that something like 9/11 is going to happen. Tragedy, darkness, all of those things are going to flood into the world shortly. We're in this 90s golden age in which everyone's just like, fuck it, we do heroin. We're not like in the Cold War anymore. We like each other. We dress goofy. We're progressive as fuck, and yet like there's like the Middle East is about to pop off. You know, whatever. This is Bill Clinton era. This is what's his name in Great Britain? Post Thatcherism, but not it's not Tony Blair yet, right? Is it Tony Blair? I don't know. It's right before Tony Blair. Anyways, it feels like the future is coming on, and this record captures it in maybe the best way of anything. There's some protest music in here. There's some just purely interesting societal commentary in this album. Ultimately, if I'm going to start with Radiohead anywhere, if you're not a Radiohead fan, OK Computer is where to start. From start to finish on this record, you're going to be fucking sonically blown away. Starts off with Airbag. Phenomenal song. It's all about how Tom York almost died in a car crash. And it's like this great idea of commuterism. I remember, if there's one thing I remember about the 90s, it was being in a car on the highway listening to the radio. And that's what this is. It's like you drive in a car to get anywhere you fucking need to be, like especially in the Bay Area where I was, or if you're in LA, or if you're in London, certainly. And like you just fucking are driving in big long lines of cars, and that's what America is, right? And that's what the world is. It's commuterism. It's going to these big office buildings from whatever suburb you live in. Anyways, great. Paranoid Android, same thing. This feeling of like something's not really right with the world, but we're not really paying attention to it. We're just burying it and feeling it all within ourselves. Subterranean Homesick Alien takes that perspective and goes out a bit, looks at the world saying, what are these weird creatures, and why are we so self-centered, and why do we make home movies for the it's just a weird, beautiful song, and it's about wanting to leave and exit the whole thing. Exit music for a film. This is the beginning of Radiohead's fascination with Romeo and Juliet and Shakespearean themes. Exit music is actually in the Romeo and Juliet movie that will come out shortly after this. Heartbreaking song. It's all about just your worthiness of being loved, and it's dark and heavy at the end. The end of Exit music is so good. We hope that you choke. It's the final line of the song. Great song. Let Down, one of my favorite songs of all time. If I'm ever sad, if I've ever been brokenhearted, if I'm having family drama, if I'm just feeling like I didn't do the right thing one day, I listen to Let Down, watch the sunset, cry a little bit, feel a lot better about myself. There's a reggae cover of it by Toots and the Maytals, one of my other favorite bands of all time. Kills me. The horns and then Toots' voice. Rest in peace, Toots. He died in 2020. Terrible year. Man, I'm talking a lot. Water. Then you get some weird experimental stuff, and then electioneering. Back to rock and Radiohead. Super Brit poppy, but like fucking rock and roll. All about the election cycle and how shitty it is. So welcome to 2024. You get Climbing Up the Walls. A lot of people like that song. It's one of my lower Radiohead songs, but I think it's a pretty popular one. No Surprises. It's kind of like describes my life right now, like being a new dad and like just being able to turn off the noise and have a simple life, and how that might be impossible in the world that we live in now. Lucky. I play that song on guitar all the time. It's about how there's not really any superheroes anymore. About how it actually talks about a plane crash. Very reminiscent of 9/11, and yet this is 1997. And then finishes off the album with The Tourist. Kind of a weird ending to the song, but again, it's about traffic and cars and kind of just the culture, OK Computer is S tier, 100%. Tempted to do God tier, but I'm gonna go with S tier. Great record. Next. Pardon me. I'm talking a lot. And I talk a lot on our podcast, but now I don't have anyone to shut me up this time, so I got to do it myself. Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm ranking the Radiohead records. This is Neon Pocket Dimension, a space in which all things nerdy exist in harmony. I'm nerding out on Radiohead tonight, and no one's here to tell me otherwise, so whatever. Check our podcast out, regularly scheduled on Wednesdays, Pacific Time, PST, on twitch.tv/Neon Pocket Dimension, or later as VODs and podcast services. Check out youtube.com/@Odd Valley Studios, and that's where all of our videos are there for you, along with other shows like Odd Valley Drinks. I know they're talking about a new name this week. That's pretty exciting. If you haven't already voted, I think there's a poll on Twitter. Check out OMJesus's Twitter profile @OMJesus. And I think they're still doing that poll. Maybe not. Maybe it's closed already, but I'm sure you could still voice your opinion and he'd appreciate it. Where are we next? Oh, yeah. The biggest left turn in all of music history. This is Kid A. Now, you're the biggest band in the world. You've come out with a revolutionary album that describes and defines the ages that we live in and literally could be the soundtrack for the next 10 years of the fucking world with OK Computer. And what do? You take all of that sound and you throw it out the goddamn window. You throw your fame away. You stop using your voice the same way. You use synths instead of guitars. You go deep and weird and awkward and dark and heady. Instead of rockin', you make it completely undigestible, and yet it is a fucking masterpiece of an album. Radiohead, if you don't know, Tom York was feeling an incredible amount of like imposter syndrome. He was like freaking out constantly. He was having nervous breakdowns. He went catatonic for a week where he literally just couldn't speak. He was like so nervous about the fame. He couldn't handle it. Johnny Greenwood was also kind of freaking out. The rest of the band didn't really know what was going on, but there was just like this level of like, they blew up. They toured 181 days the year before this record came out, for OK Computer. They played one of the biggest shows of their life at Glastonbury. It is widely regarded as one of the best sets at Glastonbury of all time, which is saying something because that's a legendary festival. And yet on that very show, Tom York almost quit the band forever, and it took the rest of the band literally being like, dude, come on, man. Like, you got to do this. At one show, he was in an arena, and he took the subway. He left, disappeared, took the subway the other way, started heading back home, and everyone on the subway going the other way on the platforms were like, hey, I'm pretty sure we're all going to see Radiohead. Aren't you Tom York? What the fuck? He ended up turning around, playing the show, yada, yada, yada. He was a mess at the time, and so was Johnny, and so was a lot of the rest of the band. They were just, their spike to fame was way too much for them, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's a crazy record they got, you know? And how do you follow that up? You know, like so many, like for all intents and purposes, OK Computer was their debut record. It wasn't. Creep was already huge. The Bends did really well, especially in Great Britain. But OK Computer was something else entirely. The world received it with such high praise. So Kid A, in a lot of ways, is their sophomore record. And so many bands struggle in their sophomore record, you know? But it doesn't mean that, like, it's not intimidating to go from something like OK Computer to, you know, the next thing. And I think they nailed it, honestly. I think Kid A is a masterpiece of a record. I'm going to go to the track list now so I can talk through it. It starts with one of the best Radiohead songs, one of the best songs of all time, called Everything in Its Right Place. The chords on that song are flawless. The synths on that song are bringing synth music and electronic music into a pop-centered, not even pop, but into a digestible mainstream format that is still kind of unrivaled, in my opinion. Tom York was famously tired of using his voice in the same way. He didn't want to hear this kind of melancholy Brit pop, whatever, like really pretty, for lack of a better word, vocals. And he wanted to use his voice like an instrument, and specifically an electronic instrument. And so loop pedals and tape loops and these rudimentary technology that was being used for the first time in a lot of ways, or reinvented in a lot of ways. And everything in its right place uses that in a way where they're just playing with these sounds, taking these sounds, recording them, and then fucking with them in the studio for forever. And it's phenomenal. You put everything in, you get a little stoned and lay in your bed with good headphones on and listen to everything in its right place, and that shit will transport you deep. And again, the vocals and the lyrics are haunting and unnerving, and this idea of everything in its right place, right? Mise en place, like if you ever work in a restaurant, mise en place is this term. But it's this whole feeling of like everything is regimented and everything has boundaries and no one's allowed to spread out from where they're supposed to be. And like, what does it mean to be an individual, and what does it mean to feel wrong when you're supposed to feel right? Like, you're the most famous new band in the world, you're the next Beatles for all intents and purposes, and yet you don't feel good. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be human and experience these things? That's what it's all about, and it rules. Fucking rules. Then Kid A. Imagine you're listening to the A side of a record. Back in the day, records were much more formatted as far as like the singles, and the digestible radio songs are on the A side. And the B side is where you're allowed to get a little weird and play some deep cuts, in which most people might not even ever hear those because they'll just listen to the single songs, right? The second track on this album, very much the place where Creep is on Pablo Honey, the place where Paranoid Android is on OK Computer, is fucking Kid A, which is, for all intents and purposes, an experimental noise song. There's a fucking baby crying in this song that like gets remixed, and like they remix the sound of a baby crying. There's this whole idea of like, what is it to be born into the millennial era? This album comes out in 2000, a year and 9 months before 9/11, and it was the sound of post 9/11 stuff, right? Like, this was in the movie Vanilla Sky. This is all about the .com era. These people that are going into San Francisco and Silicon Valley and changing the world with things like the invention of Google, Apple starting out, the iPhone that will eventually come out a couple years later, but the .com crash, all of this instability, like tech boom and then fall in a heartbeat. Everything that we think the positivity of the 21st century, Y2K, and then 9/11 hits and we all just get fucking punched in the gut, and this album is that incarnate. The national anthem is a fucking amazing song. There's a horn section on the national anthem that to this day is the most haunting and kick-ass thing. Ed O'Brien's bass riff, this distortion like Beastie Boys Sabotage bass. Anyways, this record kicks ass. It is very much not digestible. It is dark and weird. There's ambient noise tracks on it. There's weird shit. But Idioteque, later on the record, Morning Bell, motion picture soundtrack, these shit are gut-wrenching tunes. And what can I say? Kid A, S tier record. Sorry. This spoilers. This tier list is all going to be all pretty much up at the top until we get maybe into the later times. And even then, good shit. That's Kid A. Go listen to it from start to finish. Smoke a big fat joint beforehand, or pop a couple of gummies, and just get lost. You're not necessarily going to feel good, but you're going to feel something. And it's hard to say that for everything, you know what I mean? All right, where are we at? Okay, this album could have been, in a lot of ways, a double record. Kid A and Amnesiac could have been one record. They recorded it all at the same time. Amnesiac, for all intents and purposes, is kind of a B-sides of Kid A. Now, that doesn't really make sense because a lot of Kid A is weird enough that it's all just B-sides, but this is all the same sort of vibe. In fact, on the anniversary of these records, because Amnesiac came out in 2001, so again, you see that it was right back to back. On the anniversary of these records, they put out Kid Amnesia, I think is what it was called. I own it on vinyl. Anyways, it's what this record would have been if it was joined together, and it's got some extra tunes. It's got some little interstitial like interludes that weave tracks together, and you'll hear throughout these two records there are moments in which they're borrowing motifs from each other. There's songs that like almost have like an intro from another song, or you'll hear like a synth or a sound bite that like kind of comes in from a previous record or previous song on Kid A versus Amnesiac. Amnesiac is for all intents and purposes, it is kind of like a Kid A B-side. I think there is less of a structure to the album in the way in which you flow through the record and feel like this cohesive sense of a record. I think it has equally as interesting songs and maybe even some higher highs, but it doesn't feel as cohesive as a record. It does feel like, and we had all this other material and we can't not put it out because it's all really good still. But you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have this sort of structure. And I think actually, if you really look at it, the record that I bought a couple years ago, like Kid Amnesia, it really is kind of the culmination of both of them. And I think if it would, I don't know. It's hard to say. If it would have come out this way, I don't know if Amnesiac pulls some attention from Kid A, and like Kid A by itself really deserves to stand on its own. Hard to say. Ultimately, it's a really good record. Packed Like Sardine in a Crushed Tin Box is the opening record. A weird song, but maintaining that sort of feeling of the 2001 era where it's like the lyric is, I'm a reasonable man, get off my cane. After years of waiting, nothing came, and I realized I was looking in the wrong place. Great opening line. I'm a reasonable man, get off my case is the chorus. So it's kind of all about this, like, I felt like this was the right direction to go in, and it wasn't. And I've felt that so many times in my life, and it really resonates with me. But it's a weird song, and it goes right into Pyramid Song, which is this weird song. I think it's in 12. It's like 12/8 or 12/4. And the drums are so cool. They're this weird jazz timing, and it's really intense. It's all about kind of a dreamy, like, death sequence. Really good. You and Whose Army? It's a fucking great anthem. It's like, you wouldn't think it's an anthem because the first half of the song is all weird and muffled, and Tom's vocals are like all drowned in this sound, in this weird muffled sound. But then these pianos kick in and these fucking crash cymbals, and it's like, we ride ghost horses, and it's just all about like, come and get us, like you can't do anything, like whatever. It's great. I Might Be Wrong, Knives Out, great songs. Morning Bell, Amnesiac. It's a different version of a Kid A tune, but really good. Like Spinning Plates, it's legendary. It's one of the best protest songs. It's one of the best anti-Iraq war songs ever. It's like, it's a big fuck you to the politicians of the day, the George Bushes of the day, the Tony Blairs of the day. And it is a phenomenal like song about just throwing bodies at this problem, and like them not paying the price, like the politicians not paying the price for it. One of the, like, for my generation growing up in the 9/11 era, I just felt like we really lacked protest songs the same way that like in the 60s there was Vietnam protest songs, which were phenomenal. There was so much good. Jefferson Airplane, even the Beatles for some sense, but I mean, even like wasn't considered it at the time, but CCR or just all Buffalo Springfield, all of these great records that are in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, like these great response records to the bullshit of war. And I really felt like when I was growing up there was a lack of that, and this is one of the few songs that it's like Splitting Plates, even though it doesn't sound like, it's not a big fuck you sounding song, lyrically it is just like, it's gut wrenching. It's about just soldiers dying for no fucking reason. It's a great song. Anyways, Amnesiac, can't put it quite at the Kid A level, so it's gonna go B tier. Still a great record, and arguably some of these songs on this record I like more than Kid A songs. But it's not the full package. Feel me? I'm gonna take a sip of water. All right, next up. Here we have another shift, sort of, I would say, in the Radiohead catalog. This next one is not loved by a lot of people. Well, I don't know. Hard to say. We're talking about, I'll go down here. We're talking about Hail to the Thief. I still think it's a great Radiohead record. I still think it is worthy from start to finish, but I think it's a little on the nose. It's one of those things where, that feeling of like spinning plates from Amnesiac, the national anthem from Kid A, were these songs all about, Radiohead found their voice as far as talking about anti-government, anti-establishment rhetoric, right? And I think, and also you have things like Exit Music on OK Computer, which was taking this metaphor of Romeo and Juliet and this kind of Shakespearean 1984 stuff. These themes existed within Tom's writing beforehand, but in Kid A, he really doubles down on it in such a way where lyrically it is in the forefront. Like the first song on this record is called 2 + 2 = 5, which we all know from George Orwell's 1984. Some people, I think it came off as a little try hard. I still think it's better writing than half the shit that's in rock music today. I think more than half. There's so many bands that come out like, Muse or I don't even know, but like there's so many bands that like try to be topical or whatever, and their lyrics fall way short of this. It's still really poetic. It's still really kind of obtuse. It's still really dark and odd feeling. It's just a little more on the nose, and I think ultimately people didn't really respond to it in such a way. But it is also this kind of return to form where there's a lot more guitar on this record. There's a lot more singer-songwriting vibes on this record. But also, there are these super out there, like electronic down-tempo IDM songs where it's like industrial dance music. The Gloaming is one of their favorite. I've seen Radiohead 4 times live, which is wild. They've played The Gloaming at every single one of their shows. They like to play this song. It's a weird, dark dance tune that's like has this weird click beep track and stuff. It's very much an IDM song. There's almost drum and bass. Where I End and You Begin is almost a drum and bass song on this record. Backdrifts is super electronic and also kind of like a drum and bassy thing. Mixomatosis is like this rock song, but it's like mixed up with this weird electronic 5/4 beat. Down 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 down. Super weird. This record's hard to grab onto, except for some of the singles. Go to Sleep is an all-time Radiohead song, and a single on this record. And then what's the other one? Oh, There is the big song off this record. Totally a good Radiohead song, but not my favorite. I often don't listen to this record all the way through. There's some weird songs that I don't think really deserve to get on here. We Suck Young Blood, totally forgettable. A Punch Up at a Wedding, really out of character Radiohead song. I don't know if it's a specific story or if it's allegory that I'm not really understanding, but it's a good song, but not really a Radiohead song. Scatterbrain is a good tune, but it feels a little like meandering and not like it doesn't necessarily belong on this record. And A Wolf at the Door is a good kind of dark ballad. It seems like it's about a gambler who gets in deep and doesn't know how to get out of it or something. Again, there's just not like really this feels like a collection of songs more than it does a record. And yet there's some great tunes on it. But ultimately, I think this might be my like second to lowest Radiohead record. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Still a phenomenal record as far as records of all time go, but I think as far as Radiohead goes, I think it's a little lower. All right, I'm gonna take a deep breath. Here we go. Ranking the Radiohead records. This is fun. I love doing these tier lists. I'm gonna put this out later. Last time I did the Green Day tier list, and I really enjoyed doing that one, but I was on my old computer, had some streaming problems, and ultimately it was just not very good quality. So I couldn't put it out on the YouTube, but I do want to put this one out on the YouTube because I got a new computer, new streaming setup. I think it's gonna do all right. So if you guys like seeing stuff like this, I'll do more throughout the year. We actually have an NPD production meeting this weekend. We're going to talk more about all the content that we're going to bring you for the rest of the year. We're really feeling like we're hitting our stride on this channel. I think we have a really good flow. Adding Steven, the singer bro from Extra Interact, has been like such a nice shot of life into this channel. I think between all of us, like we have a great dynamic. We've got a lot of effort. Every time like anyone like needs something, we could just kind of like shout it out and someone else is there to pick up whatever pieces is needed. I think we all fit the puzzle that is this thing, and I think we're gonna, the 2024 I think is our year. I think we've already seen a huge amount of new love for this channel, and new people chiming in for the streams. Our streams have gotten more popular, our videos on YouTube have gotten more popular. Our shorts that the singer bro is putting out have been performing phenomenally, and we just love doing this. We all have day jobs and full-time careers. We've got families. Both Steven and I have kids. Like, we're busy people. None of this makes us any money yet. You know, this is a full-on project of passion, but we all love talking about this kind of stuff. We all love nerding out. We all need an outlet to talk about video games and movies and all the good stuff that we love to, you know, talk to our friends about and are just kind of missing in our older time in our life. So I love doing this, and if anyone likes these, I'll put it out on the channel and see how it does. But I would love to do these once a month or maybe more than that, you know. So let me know what you think. Comment below. Give this video a like. It really helps the algorithm. It helps us know via analytics what people are watching and what they like. It, yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. All right, let's get through this. Next up, in Rainbows, everybody, this is Radiohead coming back, taking a little bit of a break, and going, we're gonna dominate the music industry once again. In Rainbows is a new generation of Radiohead. It's speaking to a new generation of fans. It is also growing with the fan base. Like, I think this is a really grown up record. I think if OK Computer comes out when they're entering their 20s and really like still have a lot of angst about growing into an adult and what the next chapter of life is going to be, In Rainbows is really reflective. It's really contemplative. It is it's has a lot to say, the same way that OK Computer does, but it does it with a little bit more tact, and it holds some of that rock and roll back a little bit. And yet there's great guitar tunes on this record. There's a lot of really good rockin' riffs. There's nuance and sophistication to this record, and they fucking broke the record industry doing this. I don't know if anyone was around for this or remembers, but they put this record out for free, essentially. They put it out saying, pay what you want. Go to this website. You know, minimum of $0. You can put in $0 and you still get the record. But if you want to give us money for it, you can pay up to however much you want for it. I paid them, I think it was $15 at the time. I was when did this come out? 2007. I was a junior in high school, and you know, I wasn't made of money, but I did have enough money to buy my own records, and I think I paid him $15 for it. I think there's one, two, wait, what? Hold on. there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 songs on the album. So I think my philosophy at the time, because iTunes was already out and stuff, I think my philosophy was like, okay, I'll give them a little more than $1 a song. You know, I love Radiohead. I ended up buying a fucking $80 box set, for of vinyls of this record. So it's like, and I went and saw them in concert 4 times. So I feel like I've given them the money that, you know what I mean? Like I've bought most of their records on vinyl afterwards. I've streamed their stuff 1,000 times. So, I have Radiohead posters and T-shirts and shit. Like, I've given them the money that they deserve, but the ability to give them what you'd think the record is worth is a pretty amazing thing. And it totally bypassed the record label. This was their first record after finishing their obligation to whatever their parent company was. Columbia, Paramount, I don't remember. Yeah, I should look that up, but it's okay. And yeah, I just think this record is just utterly phenomenal. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to be right back. Much better. Sorry, streamers got to blow their nose too. I didn't want to do it on stream in front of you guys. Anyways, in Rainbows, this record comes out and totally takes the world by storm. I think so many people had maybe kind of counted Radiohead out a little bit, like maybe they were on the decline, maybe they were towards the end of their career. Turns out they got, another 10 plus years in their pocket, and this is the start of that. Start out with 15 Step, this cool off rhythm, like jiving song. It's catchy in a way that Radiohead hadn't been in a while. It starts the record off saying, hey, listen to this record, you know what I mean? Then you hit Body Snatchers. It fucking rocks again. Johnny Greenwood. Great tune. Then you get Nude. This is a song they've been working on since the Kid A days. It didn't work for a long time. There's all these different renditions of it, and they put it out. And then one of the coolest things that they do with it is they do a remix contest in which anyone on the internet can remix this song. They put out the stems, which is unheard of. Again, they're using the internet and the digital age and this new generation of people who are comfortable with internet literacy and these new DAW programs that people are using to create music. That's a digital audio workspace for people who don't know, like Logic, like GarageBand is installed into MacBooks when you buy them. FL Studio, Fruity Loop Studio, Ableton. I don't know if Ableton's out at this point, but it's about to be. If it's not, I think it is. Essentially, like, they are taking advantage of that. So they put out this remix contest. People vote on these remixes. They all go up on this website that's part of their blog. I remixed it. And then they put out another remix on this record for the song Reckoner. I remixed that one. I actually got a lot of votes on my remix of that one. I remixed it in FL Studio back in the day. FL Studio 7. Big deal. So they're playing into this idea that the internet is this place to share things, and I think that was what really broke this record through. Weird Fish's RPG is a beautiful, beautiful song. All I Need is a beautiful love song, really sad but beautiful. Again, these guys are getting married at this point. They're having children, and like this record grows up with the people who were listening to Radiohead during the early .com era, or like, I think even like my parents were a little older, obviously, than the guys in Radiohead. But I still think that like they were maturing as people. I was 17, their kid is 17 now. They're about to be empty nesting and like, whatever. It's just an interesting time. Reckoner is a beautiful song. House of Cards, really spacious and arid and pleasant. And yeah, Jigsaw Falling Into Place is like a cool British pub, like bar crawl song. It's odd how this record threads the needle between like totally British rock and then like toned down mellow indie music, and then Radiohead, which is wholly unique. And then Videotape is this brutal, self-reflective song at the raw, open song at the end of the record. Great song, great tune, but haunting. I can't listen to it all the time because it makes me nervous. um, I would, you know, I'm gonna put it S tier. There it is. It's S. So we got OK Computer, Kid A, and In Rainbows in the S tier. We got the Bends in A tier. We got Amnesiac in the B tier, and we got Pablo Honey and Hail to the Thief in C tier. Now we're on to the kind of golden years of Radiohead with The King of Limbs. I'm gonna be honest. I did not love this record at the beginning. The single that came out for it, Lotus Flower, is that what it's called? Yeah. Not for me. I still don't really like that song. Just the aesthetic of it felt weird. It's like way electronic in the same way that Kid A to OK Computer feels like they did an intentional left turn to subvert your expectations of what Radiohead is today. The King of Limbs feels a little bit that way too. However, I do know that like personally the band was like a little bit less together at this point. Not in the way that they broke up, but again, they all have families, they all have children, they all have plenty of money, they all have houses in different parts of Great Britain. Johnny Greenwood is starting to do Paul Thomas Anderson scores. He did the There Will Be Blood soundtrack. He did a couple Paul Thomas Anderson movie soundtracks, and all of which are amazing. He's doing these classical symphonies with these dark, crazy strings. Tom York does a solo record, and then actually has another band called Atoms for Peace that he's touring with. Ed O'Brien does a solo record. You know, so the band is growing. They're old men at this point. They're in their 40s or so. And I think they're drifting apart, not because they don't like each other or anything like that. Radiohead, I don't think has ever really had bad blood of any kind, but they're just adults, and I think that's perfectly okay. So what actually happened was the band would get into the studio for this record, record things, and then Tom and Johnny got in the studio and started splicing all these things and recording tape loops and singing and playing over them. So it's not a very traditional recording process for which Radiohead got together to do these things. Part of that was because the whole band couldn't be there all the time. I know their scheduling was really difficult. And then part of it was because I think they were just, drifting apart as people a little bit, just being older dudes. I mean, I'm in my 30s and I have a kid, and I know I don't see a lot of my best friends as much as I did in my 20s, So I understand why that might happen. Nevertheless, I still think there's some amazing tunes on this record. Bloom, you start off... Oh, also, Tom York is going through a divorce for this record. He said he's spending a lot of time in nature and taking the train, and the King of Limbs is named after this tree that he lived near. It's like this big, huge, like stretching branches tree, and it's really like creepy and cool. And so he kind of made this whole imaginary story and narrative up around this album. Morning Mr. Magpie, interesting. Feral, I don't really like that song. Codex is beautiful, but kind of haunting. This is a short record, by the way. There's only 8 songs on this record. Give Up the Ghost is hauntingly gorgeous. My wife and I actually covered it, and I really am proud of that cover. It's on my YouTube. If you want to look up Luke Milo Design on YouTube, you can see my cover of that, and we did a music video for it, which is cool. Maybe I'll link it in the description of this video. But it's a beautiful song. And then it ends with Separator, which is all about coming out of this long relationship and becoming a new person and all that kind of stuff. It's a great record. I think it's beautiful. I think it doesn't have the same oomph and the same gusto that the rest of these Radiohead records have, but I still think it's a really good record, and I think I listen to it often enough, and it holds a special place in my heart, regardless of whether it's a top tier. None of these Radiohead records are going to be D tier, I don't think. Just letting you know. Maybe, I don't know, actually, a Moonshaped Pool is a weird one. So we're on to the final, as of now. studio Radiohead record, and that's called A Moon-Shaped Pool. This came out in 2016, so this was during the lead up to the Trump years, and there's some pretty amazing. The opening track, especially, is a pretty amazing capturing of the feeling of the time. I think just this like insanity of the internet age going a little dark, and places like Twitter becoming not the golden age of technology and not the golden age of communication, but instead like dividing people into their own unique truths, and like paranoia and wokeism and transphobia and fucking alt right and cult behavior and all the shit. Like this is a record of its time, and therefore it's a little dark, it's a little unnerving, and it's a little dystopian in a way that makes it kind of not very listenable. And yet I revisited it the other day because I was like, I don't feel like I'd given this record enough of a chance. And listening to it all the way through, I'm like, oh, this is a really cohesive record, and it puts off a very distinct feeling, and one that I remember vividly during the era in which this was happening, and the absurdity. Like the first day that Trump got elected, we don't really talk about politics on this channel, so I won't get into it, but there was an absurdity to like, is this really happening? Like, is this actually happening? You know what I mean? And I'm sure they felt the same way with Boris Johnson in the UK. And Burn the Witch is a hell of a tune to start off with. It's all about, it's a song about the Crucible, the play, and the Wicker Man, the movie was named after it. And it's all about, paranoia and everyone having their own truth. And it's a dark song, but it fucking rocks too in a lot of ways. Beautiful ballads, Daydreaming, Deck's Dark, really cool. Desert Island Disc. I don't know, this record also, as much as it's dark and moody and weird, it also kind of seems like Tom York expressing himself with a little bit more of a pop sensibility, like a little more of a digestible sensibility. I know he moved to LA at this point for a little while. He was single for the first time in a while. He was hanging out with Flea and his band Atoms for Peace, and he was doing a little bit of the rock star thing, like he was being seen around LA with fashionable clothing on, and like I don't know, there's something to be said about it where this record actually lyrically is a little more digestible than other Radiohead albums, even if the sounds aren't. Full Stop is a great song about self-consciousness and maybe fucking it all up, and it's just all about messing it all up. I think maybe it's about his divorce, but maybe it's about Radiohead the band itself, maybe it's about the country. It's you really messed up everything is this kind of repeated motive in that song. Identikit is kind of a cool electronic song. The Numbers is a cool acoustic song. Present Tense, same thing. And then True Love Waits is this song that has been a Radiohead song since the Kid A days, if not beforehand. And they've played it live a bunch. I've seen it live. It's a song to make you cry. It's called True Love Waits, and it truly is this amazing love song. And it's all about like, it's interesting when Radiohead does love songs, because you don't really consider them a band that like thinks about love the way that like you think about the Beatles saying all you need is love, or Hey Jude, or Across the Universe, or songs like that. But there is a bit of that within Radiohead, and they do have this thing that the Beatles had, which was they're utterly unique in that they capture a bit of like, it's almost like a Forrest Gump style thing of like this fluid capturing of the time in which they existed in. And Radiohead certainly did it a lot longer than the Beatles did. The Beatles were only around for like 9 years really, but like Radiohead's been around for almost 30 now. And yeah, actually it has been 30 years. Holy shit. It's, I think they utterly, even though they're not the Beatles in sound at all, but they do a lot of the things that the Beatles were doing. They use new technology to embrace new ways of putting out music, to embrace new types of how to make music and how to distribute music. They are they have a great songwriting duo in Johnny Greenwood and Tom York, the same way that Lennon and McCartney were. They are an ensemble, and yet some of them have broken out to do great solo stuff, like George Harrison or Paul McCartney or John Lennon before he died. And they have protest songs and songs about the political era, and they have been vilified by politicians or the establishment, but also evangelized by their fans or whatever. They both have this kind of culty following, in that the Beatlemania was crazy and Radiohead fans were pretty over the top for the OK Computer era. So this record, oddly enough, is a pretty good send off. I think I was a little sad that this might be like the last true Radiohead record when it came out. It felt that way very much when it did. But I think actually listening back to it more recently, I think it's like a pretty deserving end. I'm kind of glad they didn't go out with a bang. This is a bit of a murmur, but it does have a little bit of an element of like, hey, we did this thing. This is the journey. This is those lapsed chapters in Lord of the Rings where all the hobbits are saying goodbye to each other, and it's sad, and you're like, why is the scourging of the Shire happening? Like, like, why is Saruman like in the Shire, and we're like still dealing with some sort of conflict in the very end of the book? There's a bit of that here, like where you're like, what is this? Is this another message? Do you still have something to say? And if you don't, what do we take away from this? But ultimately, this record wraps up with this song that they've been playing live to people for decades, and it's on this live record, and it just kills you. And the rendition of it at the end of this record is gorgeous. And then, of course, afterwards they would put out the anniversary of OK Computer with a bunch of selected tracks. They got hacked at one point, and someone took a bunch of unfinished tracks from them, and then they were threatening to ransom them, and Radiohead just put them out for free because they're like, fuck it, we'll put them out. So I don't think Radiohead's entirely done. I think there's even a chance they get back in the studio and make one more record, but in some ways this could be it. I think Tom York and Johnny Greenwood are doing this band called The Smile now, which I think is carrying forward a lot of the spirit of Radiohead without a lot of the pressure of Radiohead. I think they might be feeling like if they get back in the studio for Radiohead, it's going to be just doing it for the sake of doing it as opposed to doing it because they want to do it. And I'm fine if this is where they leave it. It's still, I still don't feel like it's as cohesive as Pablo Honey or Hail to the Thief or The King of Limbs, really. It's certainly not an Amnesiac. It's certainly not a Kid A, and it's absolutely not an OK Computer, a Kid A. Oh, sorry, the Bends, a Kid A, or an M Rainbows. So as far as Radiohead records, I do think I'm actually going to put it in this D tier. But I just really want to stress that doesn't mean that it's a bad record. I still think it's better than 90% of, well, maybe 80% of records that have come out since 2016. At least for me as a Radiohead fan. So, anyways, I think that, yeah, I think that's that. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. There's the Smile records, there's Tom York's solo records, there's these other records that they've put out, B-side records. There's In Rainbows Disc 2. There's some other stuff. There's tons of EPs and stuff that they've put out, but as far as their studio records, this is what I got for them, and I think it's a good tier list. This has been about an hour and 15 or something like that, seems like, so I think that's a pretty good time to call it. And I just want to thank anyone who was here to watch it, and anyone who watches this later on YouTube, please leave a comment whether you liked or didn't like it. If you don't like this kind of stuff and you're like, stick to your podcast stuff, let me know that too. I won't be offended. But if you do like this kind of stuff, let us know. Give us a like or comment in below. Let me know what your Radiohead tier list is, and if you have any bands specifically that you want me to go through their record collection to do this with. I think I'm going to do Gorillaz for sure because they're one of my other favorite bands. I might redo the Green Day one because the VOD for that did not come out the way I wanted it to. There's some other bands that I might do this for, and then I might do more like broader genre stuff. I might do my favorite albums of all time, favorite songs of all time, maybe favorite album track ones, side ones, or side one track ones, or something like that. I like doing this stuff, and I love music, and I think I have a lot to say about it that maybe people would like. So my name is Gage Sieber, aka Luke Shot First. Oh, if I need a partner for the Green Day one, says Mr. Hawk, I would love that. We've been needing to get you on the channel anyways. I know you've guessed it on one podcast episode, but let's do it again. I'll ping you about that. That's a good idea. It'd be fun actually to go back and forth, especially because their new album Saviors just came out, and I actually like it more than I thought I would. Really didn't like Father of All Motherfuckers, which was the album before that. But Saviors is actually pretty good. It's scratching some itches. I'm also just a little older now with Green Day. Like, you know, I'm lacking a little bit of the angst that I had for them before. But Billy Joe's still a really good songwriter. Yeah, cool. Anyways, this is did anyone like Father of All? Yeah, that's a good call. I don't know what they were doing with that one. I really don't. Anywho, this has been a Neon Pocket Dimension production of a Radiohead studio album tier list. My name is Gage Sieber, aka Luke Shot First. You can find the rest of our content on youtube.com/@Odd Valley Studios. Check us out on Twitter at NPD Squad, where we will keep you abreast of all of the upcoming videos. Keep in touch about our Fantasy Critic League. That's going hot right now. I just picked up some stuff this week that I'm pretty excited about. And yeah, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And until next time, I've been Gage. This has been Radiohead. It's all Neon Pocket Dimension. And I'm out. Peace.